So you're all very welcome along. Hopefully this is a nice way for you to start your day. I find these breakfast events, they can be a great way to then head off into work. And the topic today, I think, is relevant for us all. We are very lucky to have three specialists in this area, all with diverse backgrounds, and I'm going to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves now in a moment. Maybe just a funny story just to start. Generally for these, you do map out questions. You kind of give the panel a bit of time to prep. But I also say to the panel that I have a tendency to go in different directions. So even though you've got questions that you think you're going to be asked, be careful what you say, because it could open up a few more questions and a few different directions. But no doubt we're going to have some fun. Maybe to kick us off, it would be great to get a brief introduction from the three of you. So Maura, would you mind doing a brief introduction?
Yes, hi, I'm Professor Maura McAdam. I'm Professor of Management at DCU, and my, interest is women's entrepreneurship. I'm very motivated to do research which has real impact, and in 2 weeks my first trade book, non-academic book, is going to be published. So yes.
And some of you in your goodie bag, some of the lucky ones, potentially the ones who sit in the front row, which at the moment we don't have anybody sitting in the front row. There might be one of these in that goodie bag, so you might want to change seats, or if you arrive a little bit late, you can jump in the front row. And at the end, we're going to do a little bit of a Q&A with all of you. And let's just say the brave people who asked the questions might also get a copy of the book. So thank you, Maura, for joining us today. Liz.
Good morning, everyone. Elizabeth Bradley's my name. I am a partner in the banking team in DLA. I started my career back in 2000, literally next door. And to my surprise, qualified into banking in 2003. And from there, after about 5 years of post-qualification, I thought, you know what, maybe let's check out a place across the water. You often think, is the grass a little greener somewhere else? So made a little whistle-stop tour into Burnwallis for a few years. And from there, I was like, okay, maybe time for a change again, and landed in Maples and Calder, where I was for 12 years. And then last year, moved across to DLA. So I've been checking out a few lawns around Dublin over my 26-year career.
Excellent. And Liz, would you mind telling us a small bit about just 100 Women in Finance? Because I know you're very invested in that.
Yes. Okay, 100 Women in Finance, I'm currently the co-chair with another formidable lady, Fionnuala Donnelly. Joined that committee, I'd say about 7-8 years ago. And that committee is about women in the funds and finance industry coming together, and it's about peer engagement, networking, and sponsorship. And we organise a number of events a year. They can often be educational and on the soft side, the soft skill side. But fundamentally, what I'd say is our unique USP is that network piece. Because I often feel that women don't have as many opportunities to do that kind of more kind of socializing and building out your network in a kind of a safe space, a collaborative space. So we combine the two and do at least four events a year. And it's been an incredibly rewarding committee to be part of. I started at the very bottom. Did I think I'd be co-chair? Absolutely not. Imposter syndrome moment number one. But I'm on a committee with fantastic women who support and lift up each other, and we try and pass that on to our membership as well.
Thank you, Liz.
Well done.
And Lorraine.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning, everybody. It's so lovely to be here and lovely to see you all this morning. My name is Lorraine Heskin. I am the founder and CEO of a business called Gourmet Food Parlour. I started the business in 2006 after moving home from America. I'm not a qualified chef. I can't claim to take any of the positive responsibility around any food in Gourmet Food Parlour, but I was always very passionate about having my own business, living in America, back in the early noughties really instilled something very special in me around customer service and a positive energy around hospitality. So when I moved home, I set up the business. We are 20 years in business this July, which I absolutely cannot believe I'm even saying that. I can't believe I'm old enough to say that I have a business that's 20 years in business. But we are one of the very few businesses in hospitality in the country that is open for breakfast, brunch, lunch and dinner. We operate 7 days a week. We have takeaway available as well. And we have 2 catering divisions, one in Galway and one in Dublin. We operate we operate and work with elite sports teams throughout the country. We're Ireland's #1 sports caterer. We also have 13 different restaurants, and we're about to open our 14th this year. 320 staff, and extremely proud of our Irish grassroots grown business that we operate throughout Meath, Galway and Dublin, and you never know where else you might show up. So I'm so happy to be here today, and I hope you enjoy the morning.
Brilliant, thank you. So what's interesting is when we were deciding on a topic for today, this topic really stood out purely because I also see a lot of faces in the room who I've had the pleasure of working with in terms of leadership development. And one thing that I've seen over the last number of years is the ask for that to be part of programs. Can we talk about self-belief? Can we help people, build self-belief? And it's an interesting topic because a lot of the time we leave it to chance. As I continue to move through my career, maybe I will get more confidence as I continue to progress. But we can actively build it as well. And I'm curious maybe to start by asking the three of you, when you think of self-doubt, in your opinion, is it something you learn to live with, or is it something that we have to try to overcome? And Lorraine, I see you've got the mic, so we might start with you on this one.
Rookie mistake. No. I think, look, I probably would answer this question differently if I was a lot younger. But because I've had the opportunity to have such experience in life, both personally and professionally, I would say that for me at the moment, self-doubt is a positive thing. And I think it's like everything in life. I have self-doubt every day, about decisions I make, about the people I surround myself with, the direction I want to take the business in. But there are so many parameters around self-doubt that we need to understand in our own life. And I think the most important thing for me is that I have not done over the last few years is compare myself to anybody else. And I used to do that a lot. Oh no, I'm not doing enough. Oh no, I'm not working hard enough. Oh no, I'm not as good as them. And then I stopped and I took a minute and I did work on myself by working with other people and, and working on myself as a person, as a female entrepreneur, as a mom, etc. All of those things. And it has helped me massively because the more I understood myself, probably the less self-doubt I had, and the more I was confident and stood behind my decisions and my decision making. Because, if I make a decision in the business, for example, it mightn't work out, but have I learnt more from making the wrong decision in my business? Yes, I have. And it's prevented me from going down that path again. So I think when I look at things, I'm a very positive person anyway, so I like to think that I can turn a negative into a positive. And I always say to the team, which they give me those, oh my God. I'm like, if we have a problem, there are 3 solutions. Let's pick one of them to solve that problem. And that's the kind of person I am. But through those self-doubt moments, which I still have, I still dig deep for the strength within because I know I can do it. I absolutely do. And I know I can work through it. And I look at that self-doubt as something that I can turn into a positive.
So if I was to ask you, Lorraine, have you just normalized those feelings to a degree? So it's not like they go away, they're still there.
Oh yeah.
But you've just
absolutely
learned to lean into them a little bit more rather than wonder, why am I feeling like this?
But I also think as well, it's a privilege to do what I do every day. I feel so lucky. I feel so lucky to be working with the people that I work with alongside in Gourmet Food Parlour. The team are incredible, but even suppliers, people external, our customers, people I meet every day. I feel that life is a privilege. And those moments of self-doubt are because I'm navigating that path. Excellent.
Thank you. And Liz, what were your thoughts? Is it something we learn to live with, or have you learned to live with it versus try to overcome it?
Oh, definitely. I haven't conquered it at all. And I think, as Lorraine said, I don't think it's something we need to do. There are positives with it. I would say over my career, Like I know ever since I was a little girl, I wanted to be a solicitor. I knew that. My mother's solicitor, my grandfather's solicitor was in the bloodline. But did I ever think I'd be a corporate lawyer? Absolutely freaking not. No way. So even starting my journey in A&L, I couldn't believe I got it. It's like, oh wow, I've got a traineeship here. Then I qualify. And then I'm thinking, God, will there be a place for me here? The economy had changed in 2003, and actually a third of my group had been let go. I was kept on, and I remember checking myself going, have they made a mistake? And maybe I'm waiting to hear them tell me. So almost at the beginning of my career, I think that self-doubt almost felt kind of personal as well. And you were kind of checking your capability. Like, do I have the skill set? Should I be here? So I have definitely had that over my career, but with kind of experience, with confidence, within your networks, I have learned to overcome that and recognize, okay, it's less about capability and maybe it's more about legitimacy. It's like, actually, am I entitled to be here? And I think over my journey and the achievements that I've attained, which still are my triggers to go, God, should I be here? Should I be on this panel? How did I end up being co-chair of 100 Women in Finance? These weren't necessarily things I set out. They happened along the way, but not by accident, by hard work. And with that, then I have been able to reduce the noise of the self-doubt, definitely, constantly, every day. Some louder moments than others, but otherwise I'm able to squash them down and go, you know what? I am good enough and I have a value.
And then we will explore how you've managed as well to turn that volume down a little bit, because I think that's something that at times it can be harder to do. Yeah. Maura, I'm very curious in terms of your take on this, because this is something that you ultimately live in. You study this, you've studied it for a number of years, specifically with a female entrepreneur population as well. What would your take on that question of living with self-doubt or overcoming it? Where would you be?
Well, first of all, I would say, I suppose, normalize it. Everybody has self-doubt.
Yeah.
And there is a tendency, that they say that we compare our insides to other people's outsides. So the first thing I would say is everybody has self-doubt. One of the things, I suppose, in terms of a research perspective, we have to be careful of not to get in the habit of self-doubt. Because what happens then is that your brain actually goes to that default. Oh, I've got a new opportunity. I've got a new promotion. I have to doubt myself. So we have to be careful with that. And how do we do that? And we've had really great examples this morning. Self-reflection is really important. And I do think that also it comes with age as well. But particularly with the women I would coach, rather than saying, you're going to overcome it, you will never have it again, it's reframing it more positively. You have it because you're doing something really good. You're stretching yourself. This is a really positive sign. And how can you actually change that and reframe it? So I think that's really important as well. And I think we'll always have self-doubt. For me, I take it now as a pause. If I have it, I think, okay, I need to sit here, maybe write about it. And this is what I do with myself. And being a researcher, I say to myself, what is the evidence here that you should actually have self-doubt? You should be worried, or you're not going to be able to do this. 9 out of 10 times, there's no evidence at all, And I have a really good mentor. And I know when I have gone too far down the spiral, when she says to me, where's the evidence? Because I know then you don't say it to a professor, where's the evidence? So that's how I know I've gone too far. And I'll be very honest, I shouldn't probably say this, but I probably am wired a little bit negatively. I am definitely that. So I have to work really hard at this. And I think from working at it myself, it's helped me with coaching as well. And yeah.
And Mark, can I just add, I think we're fortunate now, the kind of emphasis on female networks, whatever they look like, informal or formal, be it girlfriends, colleagues, committees, that actually I think we've learned to be a little bit more honest about our experiences. And when you share that with other people and you go, God, I'm crap, I'm struggling, I don't think I can do this, they often go, oh my God, you're not alone. You're brilliant. They lift you up and you go, you check yourself.
Yeah.
So that helps in the that kind of noise in your head as well. And I think that's something we're getting better at.
Brilliant. And it actually speaks to a really important point. So when we look at the literature around self-belief and building self-belief, Maura, you could probably explain this a lot better than me, but obviously Albert Bandura has four ways that you can build self-belief, right? So one is what Liz is mentioning, where you've got a supportive network, you've got that positive reinforcement, and that is critically important. One thing I notice on a lot of the leadership programs, one of the biggest benefits people get is actually being in the room with people just like them and being able to share the fact that, oh yeah, that's something that scares me, or that's something that challenges me. That for us is a great way to build our self-belief. And the other three would be, so one is having good role models, which we've mentioned. One is mastery experiences, so leaning in when we do feel that little bit of hesitation. And the other one is, believe it or not, what we call managing our physiological and emotional states. So managing that heart rate that is going through the roof before you step into the meeting or you step into the presentation. And that's where these elements of looking after our well-being, prioritizing aspects like self-care, they become critically important because they directly impact our self-belief.
Can I add a little point to that as well? I was in a very, I suppose, private business group recently with about 20 business people from all around the country in various different spectrums. And we were all asked to speak at the table about who we were and what our greatest fear was, which is quite a vulnerable thing to do. But somebody at the table, who you'd all know, but somebody at the table spoke about his biggest regret, and it wasn't a fear, it was his biggest regret. And his biggest regret was that when his business was going under and he lost his business, that he did not share his self-doubt and the struggles that he was going through way before he ever did, and it was too late. And sometimes we don't want to share what we're going through because we believe we're going to put ourselves out there too much. But I think from experience, the greatest thing that I've ever done is be honest and be vulnerable in a business setting with people who understand what you're going through. And I don't think there's anything stronger than that, because you learn so much, and it makes you feel so much better. Like it really, really does.
And I think you get that with confidence.
Yeah, you do. You do.
Learn, I think over the years, like I find that for me as a lawyer, actually the bravest thing sometimes on client calls or in meetings is to go, I don't know. Actually, you need to leave that with me.
Leave it with me.
And he mentioned nodding heads that go, oh God, yeah, actually, I don't know either. And I think that comes with confidence, admitting that. And is that a weakness? Absolutely not.
No.
I think it's a strength.
But he said, like, it was a very emotional admission, and everybody around the table was extremely emotional. And he said, like, that's the worst thing I've ever done, and I will never, ever do that again. And he said, please, all of you around this table, use the networks that you're in to really lean on people when you're going through, the difficult times, which we all go through. We all go through them. Yeah. It was powerful, very powerful.
Yeah, it is. And it's sometimes it's nearly paradoxical, isn't it? We think if I open up and I actually am more vulnerable, it shows a level of weakness, when in fact, as you say, it kind of creates an environment where other people can, to your point, Liz, say, actually, I don't know the answer either. Rather than us all leaving the meeting, not knowing what we're going to do next.
I think so many people think people at our level, when you're that senior, you've got it all worked out. You're a genius. You're perfect. There's no foibles, no any of that. But you're like, Jesus, I'm still human as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think the power to be able to ask good questions and be curious is something that we, maybe when we're younger in our careers, we think we need to have all the answers. And then what we see as we progress through our careers is the best leaders, the best individuals in the room are the ones that are curious, that are asking questions, that are listening. And it kind of hits us then, and we realize, actually, okay, that's what showing up really looks like. I don't have to have all the answers.
Yeah. And Maura, you said as well, like you have a mentor. I think it's really important that everybody has a mentor in life, for life and for business. I think it's really, really important. I think the value that you get from that is a millionfold, and to have somebody that you're nearly accountable to for yourself as a person and in business, it's a very powerful thing outside your business. I think it's really, really important. And I have one, and I've had one over the years, and it's magic. Yeah, magic.
Because they hold a mirror up to you, and it helps you in terms of making sense. Because sometimes you can be in your head too much as well. So it helps you come out of your head, and also then, and sometimes I like the accountability as well, because what are you doing here as well? So everyone needs that.
Keeps you focused.
Yeah,
Keeps you focused. Yeah.
and the other thing, I suppose, what the research will show about mentorship is you'll have different mentors as you go through your career. So they used to say that you'd have one mentor for life, but you'll have different mentors for different parts of your life. And that's normal because we're all evolving and we all have different needs.
I'm curious to explore the topic of identity tensions, okay? Because as we move through our career, we might step into a new role and we may feel that, yeah, I'm ready. And then all of a sudden it's day one in that new role and that voice in our head is just screaming at us, right? It can be brought on by, I'm sure, opening a new restaurant. I'm sure, Lorraine, when you go through that period of time, maybe that voice the volume turns up a little bit. For you, Liz, it's stepping into these various, whether it's the 100 women in finance and climbing the ranks there, etc. And for you, Maura, it could be writing a new book. I'm curious to ask you, how have you constructed, when we think of this topic of identity, how have you gone about constructing an identity to help when you're met with those stretch moments or those challenges where we can get a little bit more emotional, less logical, less evidence-based, because it becomes more of a feeling rather than a rational thought, let's say. So ways that you've constructed an identity to deal with those challenging moments, stretch moments. Liz, actually, we might start with you on this one.
Ooh, okay. Well, identity for me, and certainly in a legal career in the banking world, which has been very male dominated and typically is, I think I tended to think initially that I had to fit a certain mold. And I think I felt that I had to dial down who Liz Bradley was. And I had to present in a certain way and conform. And certainly with the self-doubt not to show it. And just to kind of try and manage that, if you did, again, going back to what we're saying, it was that a weakness. I had such a pivotal moment, I think, in my career. When I qualified, I had a female boss, and I remember that she was absolutely brilliant technically. She was adored by clients, and she was sound. She was really nice. And it was such a kind of light bulb moment going, my gosh, you can be an excellent lawyer and a decent human being at the same time. They're mutually exclusive. And I think then that has really resonated with me. And even when I was invited to this panel, she reached out to me and said, Liz, I'm so proud. And I said, well, I'm here. I have you to be thankful for. And gives me emotional. Because you remember those moments.
Yeah, of course.
And I have actually taken that in what is a tough environment. And I've found that my personality it's not a weakness, it's actually my superpower. And I blend it then with who I am. So I can still be technical and turn up and be committed. And then bringing me, which can be a little bit light-hearted, but still, have very high standards, that blend works and feels authentic to me. And therefore, when I'm challenged with these moments of self-doubt, well, again, I'm not superhuman, but I do have some superpowers in my armory, and I can deal with that and I can cope with that. And that's who I bring into the workplace, that I allow myself to bring that into the workplace.
And can I ask you, Liz, was that a period that transition, let's say, was that a period of time that it wasn't like, oh, I finish up on Friday, Monday I'm going to rock in and I'm going to be You talk to us a little bit about how that transitionary period was for you.
I think I saw what was possible, what was acceptable, what actually was thriving, and actually what was enjoyable. Because I think if we try and conform to something, this fixed identity, it just doesn't feel right. It's not, it's like wearing an uncomfortable suit. So I think that when I kind of allowed myself grow into the role and bring myself, just everything felt a little easier. And you're kind of drowning out the little bit of self-doubt, parking those imposter moments, and leaning into what are your strengths and going, I am good enough. I deserve to be here. I'm entitled to be here. I've earned the right to be here. And every time I've moved in my career, so I've had 4 moves, certainly I know leaving A&L, my alma mater, I was actually terrified to leave because I thought, Jesus, I'll be exposed for a fraud. They think everybody coming out there is a rock star, but life outside there. I've been housed for 8 years. But actually when I moved to my next firm and then I found people were like, oh God, you came from over there. We see your ability, your strengths, your skill set. I was like, okay, actually stop this, recognize who you are, and then bringing my personality to the table as well. So the confidence piece has increased over time, and which is empowering. And then I think with that is the relaxing into who I am and what I bring to the table.
It sounds like, to Maura's point earlier on, that deliberate self-reflection has been a big part of that journey for you.
And you don't stop.
No. Lorraine, for you, obviously you have grown a business over the last 20 years, and I can only imagine what it's like as you're opening the various premises. I'd imagine self-doubt becomes pretty consistent. How have you constructed your own identity throughout that period to step into those moments with that confidence?
I'm a totally different person now to the person I was when I opened Gourmet Food Parlour 20 years ago. And that progression through life has completely transformed me because of the experiences that I've had between opening restaurants, having to close down restaurants, maybe selling a restaurant, something maybe not working out, and challenges, within the industry, within the business. But the one thing, and Liz, you just nailed it with your answer there, is to be a business person, to be a female entrepreneur, I think you need to be a little bit mad, and I'm definitely a little bit mad. But I think recognizing who I am, and I think when you're younger, and I most certainly definitely was more of a crowd pleaser than I am now. I was definitely somebody who, you said there, conformed with the norm, and followed the path of let's do everything to be right for everybody. And then I stopped and I came to that crossroads and I took a different path because I realized that I was never going to be ultimately happy. And happy for me is getting up every morning and loving what I'm doing. And when I started to reflect on the person that I actually wanted to be as a person, as opposed to the person who I was trying to be, it made a massive difference. And it's made a massive difference to me personally, as a mom and having 3 kids and having 320 staff who are like 320 kids to me, to be honest with you. That's how much I love the team. And I'm not just saying that because one of my staff's brothers is in the audience there. Sean is fab. But genuinely, I don't do what I do to sit on a beach in Barbados, because that'll never happen. I do what I do because I absolutely love it, and it really makes me a better person. And I feel so privileged to be able to say that. So my path of trying to identify who I am now and who I have been over the years is 100% wanting to be a better leader, wanting to be a better business person, and being happy will make me better. And I think when I actually let go and realize that eventually, it has made a huge difference to me. And I think to being a better leader as well. But also from a corporate and a business answer as well. I've built the business with the team over the years to put something special together. And I knew about 14 years ago that I wanted to build a structure within Gourmet Food Parlour that was going to be able to absorb growth. And we are one of the very few hospitality businesses we've got about like 50 to 60 people working in our head office amongst marketing, PR, operations, maintenance, purchasing, development, all of that. It's very important to me that we have all of those aspects, that we have a progressive career path. So from a non-personal answer, I've also wanted to be sharp. I've wanted to be the best in the business. I'm very ambitious, I'm very driven, and I like to succeed for the team and for the brand. And that has been really important to me as well. So building strength within myself to be able to make those decisions, to curb that self-doubt, to curb anything where I felt like, oh no, I'm not going to be home enough, but yeah, I can be home enough and I can do that and we can do that. And another thing is, and I will say this a million times every time I speak, surround yourself with good people. Surround yourself with good people in your life, in your personal life and in your business life. And when you make those decisions, because I've had to let go of people over the years, that was emotional decisions, very emotional, but by God, were they the best decisions I ever made, because my life, even though it was very difficult, my life has been so much better as a result of that.
Brilliant. So what I'm hearing from both Liz and Lorraine is this idea of stepping into who you are, this idea of not trying to conform necessarily to what you think people or who you think people want you to be. Being that authentic self is coming true as something which is really important. And I also hear real clarity in you both in terms of who you want to be, what you want to achieve, etc. And it's interesting because one of the questions that I generally put up on the screen when we do leadership programs is the question, what do you really want? And get people to sit with that question a little bit from a career perspective. What do you really want in terms of your career? And are you being honest with yourself in terms of that question? Have you even sat with that question to try and help in terms of navigate some of those identity tensions that we experience? And Maura, I'm curious to ask you, in your book you have different calls to action, which I think is a great way to phrase it, and we're going to explore one of those in particular in a couple of moments. But when you think of identity tensions, based on your research, what actually helps us in those identity tensions?
So I have to say, in terms of my research, which is 26 years now, identity is something I've looked at a lot. And that's predominantly because the stereotype of the entrepreneur is still white male 45. And still, even, I go into a fresh class of undergrads every year and ask who is the typical entrepreneur, and we're still getting the same people mentioned and identified. And, we may smile at that, but that has implications for people that want to be an entrepreneur and stepping into that arena. And very much what was really been mentioned here is feeling maybe initially that you might have to blend in, that you might feel that you need to fit in. And a lot of women that I have interviewed and also coached talk about that and talk about that need of feeling that they need to be different. But definitely one of the things that I suppose really helps with that, and again, it's really been mentioned this morning, so they're making my job easy, is I would say being very clear on what your values are. So it's very similar to what you're saying of what do you want? And sometimes when I first am talking to somebody that I'm coaching and I ask, what are your values? Lots of women actually say, I have no idea. And it's a very simple question. And interestingly, I could tell them what their values are because it's very obvious in the way that they deal with people and their ambitions and the way that they operate. But a lot of people actually have never really asked themselves, what are my values? What is important to me? And again, very much what Lorraine's saying, knowing that helps you in terms of, well, who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? And that's your identity. And identity is very much not just how we see ourselves, but how other people see ourselves or see us. So it's a two-way interaction. So in order for people to see us in a certain way, we need to be very clear on how we want to show up and what's important for us. The other thing with identity, we have all multiple identities, so it might be a professor, it might be a researcher, it might be a daughter, it might be a sister. So we have all multiple identities. And again, what Lorraine has said, we have to allow ourselves to have those multiple identities and give ourselves space to actually what we call in academia, negotiate and navigate. You're not never going to overcome identity tensions, but you're going to negotiate them on a daily basis and you're going to navigate them as well. And then the third thing, again, my two companions have made this very easy for me. One of the things which is really important, I think, with navigating identity tensions is who you surround yourself with. And like I think about my own personal example, particularly in academia, in terms of progression, there are quite big steps and they changed the titles of them. But whenever I first started, it was lecturer, senior lecturer, reader, professor. And I was approached about my current job. And so I went from literally overnight, as you mentioned, senior lecturer to professor. And so my CV was very much saying, this is professor. A very significant committee had agreed that this was professor. But it did take me, I would say, a little while to then think, oh my goodness, really? When I saw it on the door, I was like, are you sure? So I think, again, back to these identity tensions, we are growing, we are pursuing our goals, we are living the life we're supposed to, but sometimes it takes our inner self a little while to catch up, and that's absolutely fine.
Yeah. And you've actually sparked a question specifically on that, because I know that you've done research as well around, let's say, as you described there yourself, okay, you're now a professor, or I'm now a leader, but actually, you know, I need to own, let's say, this new role, this new identity in order for others to see me that way.
Yeah.
So they're not going to just see me that way because now I have the title. I have to show up in that way. And I'm just interested, could you talk to us a little bit more about that element where ultimately we're now in that role, we now have that title, but people won't see us differently unless we show up differently.
Yeah, and it's very much about claiming space. I always joke to my students and say, if I wrote nurse outside my office, would they believe me? And they were like, no, we definitely wouldn't believe. So it's that, you know, we can say we are a title or we can claim we are something, but we also, as you say, we have to live that role and we have to show up. And it's very much about claiming that space. And again, it comes with knowing your values, knowing your self-worth, knowing you work really hard, that you deserve to be there, and having that self-reflection, and also sometimes having, like, I'll be talking to myself and people like, that's that nut job. And really it is just saying, you've got this, you could do this. And that takes a little bit of time as well. But I think it's important that if we claim the space, and for me, for example, if I claim the space of a female professor, that gives other women the ability to claim that space too. So it's not just about us. Sometimes it's also about opening that up for others.
Yeah. And again, it's really interesting because having worked with some of the people in this room, if I was to ask them, why do they hesitate at times? They might say, I don't want to come across as arrogant, right? So as a result, there's a lot of hedging language or apologetic language. How important is it for us to, I suppose, get rid of this idea that by claiming the space, I'm coming across as arrogant? And how important is it for us to not be, or be more conscious of the hedging language, the apologetic language when I'm in those important rooms? And actually, maybe that's one for all three, but Maura, we might start with you.
Well, I think it's really important that to realise that some of those concerns about maybe coming across as too much or self-promotion or too arrogant, that actually comes from societal expectations and the identity of what is a good woman, or what is, you know, there's actually research to show that women actually score very high on the factor or variable of agreeableness. So we may, and I am prone to this sometimes too, that we want to be more agreeable and a good citizen, and that's really again about wanting to fit in. But I suppose, you know, again, the research shows that women have a tendency sometimes, particularly I always share the example that some of the women will say, well, I have a wee business or I have a side project, and they have an incredible business and incredible, but you know, so it's that, and again, we may laugh at that, but then you see them differently. You might, you know, it can then affect their credibility and legitimacy. So I suppose, again, when you hear that voice of, oh, am I being too much? Am I, self-promoting? Say absolutely not. You're actually claiming the rightful space that you have. And also, again, telling yourself, if it helps, particularly if it's one of your values, you're allowing other people and other women particularly to do that as well.
Yes, absolutely.
And Liz, would you add? Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I'd say is, that kind of hesitation, certainly sometimes to speak, and we think is that because of lack of confidence. I think we're guilty of overthinking things.
Yeah.
And maybe sometimes, I often say to my team, 10 licks of paint, too much, 7 is enough, just kind of gust yourself that is good enough and move forward. And I think over my career, starting out being that person in the room, a client meeting or whatever, an internal meeting, maybe I was the quieter person, a little bit scared to speak out loud, thought, oh God, I'm sure somebody will say it better than me. Or if I do, I could be exposed for being a fraud or making a mistake, not having that confidence piece again. But again, over my career and stepping up into leadership roles as a partner in my organization, as co-chair of 100 Women in Finance and other things, I recognized, I actually have a responsibility, and it's touching on what you're saying as well, Laura. You want to lead by example. You want to bring up the people around you. And actually, if you can't do it, well, they are not going to feel empowered either to do it. So sometimes you don't have to be saying anything profound. You don't have to be speaking very loudly, but you can still recognize that actually I have a contribution to make. So I think that's important to kind of understand that and kind of, lean into that. And so, in years gone by, I think, starting the career again, that piece of, if I just work really hard, I'll get that tap on the shoulder and I'll be told, brilliant. Well, maybe that worked when you were really junior, but the more senior you become, that's not enough. So we, I think you call it grab the mic. And I think we owe it to ourselves to be doing that more and just recognize you will have a contribution to make. You're bringing something else. I mean, I was organizing an event last week there for 100 Women in Finance, and I stepped into the subcommittee to help organize it. I'm with these brilliant people, panelists, and a moderator. And it was all just kind of quiet on the call. I just thought, God, what's our structure here? What's happening here? I thought, I'm not an expert in AI at all. I haven't a bloody clue. I'm kind of a dinosaur when it comes to that stuff. But I just thought, Janie, they need a bit of direction here. So stepped in and just thought, often it's saying the obvious, something sensible, common sense. And suddenly, actually, we were discussing, there was dialogue, and we had a clear vision for the event. So it's as simple as that. So we do owe it to ourselves, and when you're stepping up and in that more senior role, whatever that looks like, just to know your contribution counts.
Yeah, and I think to your point around the tap on the shoulder, I think that is something we all at times fall into, is I'll just put my head down, I'll do good work, and eventually I'll get the tap on the shoulder. And unfortunately, what we see time and time again, and I'm sure you can all relate to it, is actually maybe the person who's potentially less talented than you, but is louder, is the person who gets the opportunity. And I think it's a really important point for us to bring up, because just to your point, Liz, as well, it doesn't necessarily have to be, every time I'm in a meeting, I'm the one giving the additional insight. It could be every meeting that I'm in, I ask a good quality question. And that's a way to assert myself in that environment without having to feel like, am I the loudest voice in the room here? But it's, to your point, the contribution could be being curious, asking a good quality question, and as a result, increasing the thinking in the environment.
And even helping the other people come together and get them to encourage talking. You might just be a navigator.
Yeah, yeah. Lorraine, on grabbing the mic, it was mentioned there, Liz talked about one of the calls to action. I think it's a really important point for us, grabbing the mic more, stepping into the space more often. Any advice, additional advice for the room on that topic?
Well, there's probably a couple of things I'd say. You know, knowing your worth, knowing your self-worth, is a really important thing. And I think how we speak to ourselves personally on a daily basis is a really important one as well. You know, we're our own worst critics. But if we were kinder to ourselves, I think that would be a really good start. As I just said there, knowing your worth, knowing who you are. And I mentioned this earlier on as well, about not comparing yourself to other people. We are all on our own individual path in life. And I feel very strongly about that we are not all doing the same thing. We are not all looking to achieve the same thing. And I think as women as well, sometimes we're afraid of being judged. We're afraid of what people are going to think about us if we put ourselves out there. But I think if we put that aside for a little bit and continue to navigate that path, our own individual path, because we all know, honestly, men and women sitting in this room today, that our happiness comes from within, doesn't come from money, doesn't come from materialistic things. It comes from genuine people, and it comes from who we are as people. And I firmly believe that if you're a really good person and you know where you want to go in life, both professionally and personally, and you prioritize that path, I think that is a very unique thing. I think that's a really special thing. And I think anybody who's doing that and continues to do that should be so proud of that journey and embrace it. And don't compare yourself to anybody else. Know your worth and own it and go for it.
Thank you. When we had our catch up, we brought up the topic of imposter syndrome, right? And Maura, you said something really interesting. You said, let's talk about it more as imposter moments.
Well, I think I first said I hate that word.
Yeah, you did.
I said I hate.
Do you want to take that?
Yeah. And then my self-doubt started to increase. Oh God, what have I done here? Sorry, Maura, sorry.
So I hate the word imposter syndrome. I just think it sounds awful, and it sounds as if we're, an infliction. And so I talk about imposter moments. And first of all, we all have them. The research also shows that men and women suffer from imposter syndrome in the same way. Interestingly, we've seen to focus on women and imposter and syndrome, and I've been to so many events where we actually don't ask men, do they have them?
They do.
The research definitely says that they do. I just think it's sort of an interesting sort of observation. So for me, I always say, if you've got imposter moments, that's fantastic. You're not going to get imposter moments in your comfort zone. How many people have got imposter moments while on holiday? You don't, unless you maybe, I think once when I zip lining or something.
Bungee jumping, maybe.
Or something like that, because you're not stretching yourself. And for me, although, and this has taken time as well, and self-reflection and journaling, that if I do have imposter moments, and again, they're just moments, they're not a defining feature of your career, they're just moments, I would say to myself, okay, you're doing something good here. You're being stretched, and being able to see that. And it is about reframing. And I use a lot of NLP in coaching, and it is about reframing. So a very simple example of that. And if I said to myself, well, I made a mistake, and say I have made a mistake, I made a mistake. But if I said to myself, and again, Lorraine, you talked about self-talk, if I said to myself, well, I am useless, well, the emotional response isn't great. Like, you're not going to have a great day the rest of the day. Yeah. But if I took the same situation, yes, I made a mistake, sent the wrong email, whatever it was. But if I said to myself, well, I'm learning, the emotional response is very, very different. And again, so we have control over that. And again, it's the self-talk, and also then seeing those imposter moments. Okay, it's a sign. We're doing something good. We're stretching ourselves. Okay, how can I talk to myself in a way that is also kind? And I don't think we talk enough about being kind to ourselves and also compassionate as well, because I think it's a really important part of our emotional and physical well-being, which you talked about really fits into the can-do attitude as well.
Yeah, it's probably the bright and dark side of ambitious people in this room, and the part you don't admit. That yes, I drive myself and I have high standards, but actually what does the dark side of that look like for you? Because not many people are going to probably admit that they tell themselves that they're useless from time to time. But I think, again, it's more so trying to catch it when we do, because there's a realization that actually the emotional response from I'm useless is not going to be very helpful.
Yeah, for sure.
I am conscious of our time. So first of all, maybe a round of applause for our fantastic panelists. And thank you all as well for joining Fitvision today to celebrate International Women's Day. If you would like to let us know what your experience of today was, you could also go into a draw to win €2,000 worth of wellbeing services for your organization. So please do let us know how your experience of today was, and feel free to continue to stay, mingle if you like. If you have to leave and head off to work, enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you. Thanks.